Today's lesson is Space Junk Crashes in Kenyan Village. Hi, everybody. My name is Roger.
And I'm Mike.
And it's our news story for the month of May. Welcome to the month of May. That means summer is just around the corner. And we're talking about space junk in today's program. It's not really something that concerns most of us because it doesn't really rain down from the sky and bash us on the head or whatever. But sometimes space junk does fall down to the Earth and causes problems. And also, there's a lot of space junk in space orbiting around the Earth, which could cause problems for satellites and space stations and rockets and things like that.
There you go. As Roger said, it's not the typical thing you worry about being hit by, falling from the sky while you're outside. I mean, I've been hit by bird poop before while walking around outside.
Yeah, me too.
But never space junk, and that's probably good. I don't think I'd be around to tell people about it if I had been hit by a piece of falling metal or debris from a broken space station or satellite or rocket or something like that. You can imagine how devastating that could be if it hit a person or even a building. And that's actually what happened in a Kenyan village. And as Roger sort of mentioned, and as we will discover in reading our article today, it's something that could be happening more and more frequently as we put more and more stuff up in space. So maybe you're going to have to be wearing a crash helmet next time you go outside. You never know what's going to be falling down on your head from the heavens. So let's find out all about space junk and how it became a bit of a problem in a little village in Kenya. Space junk crashes in Kenyan village. On the last Monday of 2024, Joseph Mutua was tending to his cow when a loud bang broke the peace of his remote Kenyan village. After initially thinking there had been a car accident, Mutua and his neighbors looked up to see a large circular object falling from the sky. The red-hot metallic ring crashed to the ground nearby, flattening trees where it fell. The object was found to weigh about 500 kilograms and is believed to be debris from a rocket launched a few days earlier.
大家好，第一部分介绍形容词 circular， 它的意思是圆形的或是环形的。例如 The garden features a circular path that leads visitors through its various sections. 这座花园有一条环形步道，引领游客穿越各个不同的区域。或者 We followed a circular path around the mountain. 我们沿着一条环山的路径前进。接着看到动词 flatten， 表示把点点点弄平或是使变平。例如 A lot of villages were flattened by the tsunami. 许多村庄被海啸夷平了。或是 The girl's bicycle was flattened by a heavy truck. 那个女孩的单车被笨重的卡车压扁。下一个看到名词 debris， 它的意思是碎片、残骸，也可以是垃圾的意思。例如 Construction workers cleared away the debris from the building. 建筑工人清除了该建筑物的残骸。也可以说A team of volunteers has worked tirelessly to clear away rubble and other debris. 一组志工队不辞辛劳地清理瓦砾和残骸。继续介绍动词 launch， 表示发射火箭。可以说 The space company plans to launch another rocket next month. 该间太空公司计划下个月发射另一枚火箭。又或者说 The rocket launched astronauts from Earth to the space station. 火箭将太空人从地球发射到太空站。
Okay, so let's go to Kenya. That is a large country in eastern Africa. Nairobi is the capital. And on the last Monday of 2024, Joseph Mutua was tending to his cow when a loud bang broke the peace of his remote Kenyan village.
My gosh.
So anything having to do with Kenya is Kenyan. And so this fella lives in Kenya. And I guess he's a farmer because he was tending to his cow. If you tend to something, you are there keeping an eye on it, taking care of it, etc., maybe milking it or feeding it or whatever. But then there was this loud bang sound. It broke the peace of his remote village there in Kenya. If something breaks the peace, it basically is loud all of a sudden, and it's no longer quiet. So maybe you're enjoying a nice quiet evening at home, and then your neighbors start singing karaoke. That breaks the peace, and you want to go to sleep, but they decided to start singing their songs at 1 o'clock in the morning.
So it says, after initially thinking there had been a car accident, that's a pretty logical thing when you hear a loud crashing noise as you're outside somewhere. Car accidents happen more often than things fall from space. So that was obviously his first thought. And then they went around, or they looked around for the source of the noise. It says, after initially thinking there had been a car accident, Mutua and his neighbors looked up to see a large circular object falling from the sky. So the bang was not made by something hitting the ground. It was made by something falling through the sky. That could have been the bang of this object breaking the sound barrier or something like that.
The sonic boom, yeah.
The sonic boom as it fell through the atmosphere, through the sky. So they finally look up and they see this amazing sight, a large circular object falling from the sky. If something is circular, it's round in shape. That's all we're saying there. It could be spherical. It could be like a ball shape, but this is more like a round shape, like a dinner plate is circular, or a record that you might play music off of, or a CD. That's also circular. It's round in shape, and this thing is falling from the sky. And I imagine, since it's falling through the atmosphere, there's smoke and flame, as if it's a meteorite or some space rock falling down. And it says the red-hot metallic ring crashed to the ground nearby, flattening trees where it fell. So obviously, this thing is fairly large, and it is moving at quite a speed as it falls down from space. When they finally came near it, they saw that it was red hot, so it's very, very hot, glowing hot, as if you take a piece of metal out of the fire where it's been for a while. And it's metallic, it's made of metal. I mean, it could be made of different types of metal, but it's obviously not made of wood or plastic or something. It's glowing hot. It's clearly something that is metallic or made of metal. And it crashed to the ground nearby with such force that it flattened trees where it fell. To flatten something is to make it flat. Where it was sticking up or rising up from the ground before, now it has been made flat. So if you flatten a sheet, you might be getting ready to put it on a table. Instead of having it just in a ball that you toss there, you stretch it out, you make it flat, you make it stick, or at least lie closely on top of the surface below. So these trees, which generally grow up and stand up from the ground, were now lying against the ground. They had been flattened as this thing crashed into them.
Indeed, so the trees basically fell over because they were hit by this large circular object, and we're also describing it as a ring-shaped object, so maybe it was in the shape of a bicycle tire or something like that, or a wheel or whatever, like a hula hoop that you see people exercising with in parks. And yes, indeed, it flattened those trees. It was really hot, and the object was found to weigh about 500 kilograms and is believed to be debris from a rocket launched a few days earlier. So they found it to weigh 500 kilograms. That does not mean they went out and found it. Oh, there it is. Hey, look at that. It's actually 500 kilograms. No, this just means they discovered that it weighed this much later on when they were able to examine this object more closely and take it out of the ground and weigh it. It did weigh about 500 kilograms. And it was believed to be debris from a rocket. Now, debris is just leftover waste material from something. If there's a crash that you see on the highway, there's all sorts of metal and plastic and things lying on the highway. We would describe that as the debris. Don't pronounce that S because this is a French word in origin. Just kind of leftover fragments from something as the result of some explosion or some violent event.
That's right. If you see a car crash, or maybe you're watching a motor racing and two cars hit each other and many little broken bits of the car come flying off as they hit the wall or something, that would all be debris. And of course, as Roger explained, debris from an explosion can hurt people, right? If something blows up and little fragments, little bits of it go flying out at hundreds of miles an hour, those objects can still be very dangerous. So it's lucky that no one was even near this object when it landed, because the debris could have hurt them very badly. So this was believed to be broken bits bits or debris from a rocket launched a few days earlier. Yes, we launch rockets when we send them from the ground, off the ground, up through the sky into space. It's a little different. So we would launch a rocket, but an airplane or a helicopter would take off. So that's the same idea. They're leaving the ground. They're flying in the way that they do, in the way they're designed to. But the verb that we use would be a little bit different. Rockets and boats. Often when you push a boat into the water for the first time, when after that boat has been built, you are launching that boat in the same way that you launch a rocket. So this rocket was launched or took off from the ground a few days earlier, and through its journey up into the atmosphere, parts of the rocket broke off. This debris then came back down near to Joseph Mutua's farm, and luckily, he was okay. I think we can assume that because we're telling his story.
Okay, that brings us to the end of the first part of our lesson for today. Let's listen now to the second part.
While no one was hurt, the incident highlights the growing problem posed by space junk. Currently, scientists know of around 34,000 pieces of space junk, mostly dead satellites and debris from rocket launches orbiting Earth. Items in low orbit frequently re-enter Earth's atmosphere, with most burning up upon re-entry. However, as the recent Kenyan case shows, that doesn't always happen. Meanwhile, objects in higher orbits could remain there for hundreds or even thousands of years and pose a threat to functioning satellites and astronauts aboard the International Space Station.
第二部分看到名词 atmosphere， 它的意思是大气层，也可以是气氛或是氛围的意思。例如 The spaceship entered Earth's atmosphere. 太空船进入了地球的大气层。再看一个例子 This planet's atmosphere seemed to be very similar to Earth's. 这个行星的大气层似乎跟地球的很类似。
Okay, the second part says, while no one was hurt, it is true that no one was injured. The incident highlights the growing problem posed by space junk. Okay, so of course, no one was hurt. The cow is still alive. Joseph is still alive as well. No one was hurt in this incident. An incident, of course, is something that happens and that highlights the growing problem of space junk. So to highlight just means to emphasize. It reminds us that this is a problem. It could be worse in the future. I think I remember when Skylab, excuse me. I think all that debris or most of it landed on Australia. I don't think anybody was hurt, though.
No, I don't think so. Yeah, Australia landed in the South Pacific, but I do remember that. People were wearing hard hats and helmets as they went outside in a sort of joking way so that it doesn't land on their heads. But yes, space junk can be a problem, and it will probably be a bigger problem. It says currently scientists know of around 34,000 pieces of space junk, mostly dead satellites and debris from rocket launches, just like the one that crashed to Earth in Kenya. And all of these things, of course, are orbiting Earth. They're kind of flying in a circular pattern around the Earth in the same way that the space station and space shuttle and the moon also orbit the Earth. So does all this junk, 34,000 pieces of it. And that's only the bigger pieces that scientists know about. There may be smaller pieces, and all of this can be very dangerous, not just from landing on Earth, but even a small, tiny little fingernail size of metal that's flying through space. If it hit the International Space Station, it could blow a hole in it just like a bullet passing through the body of a car, and that could lead to big problems for any astronauts or other people working up there in space. So all this space junk can be very, very dangerous. And of course, it's all up there orbiting Earth. There is no garbage cleanup crew in space yet, at least. Possibly they will have to have something like that in the future. It says items in low orbit frequently re-enter Earth's atmosphere, with most burning up upon re-entry. Yeah, luckily, we have this sort of protective blanket, the atmosphere, this bubble of gas around the Earth that provides us with air to breathe and with weather to survive with, and of course also protects us from harmful rays from the sun. So that's the atmosphere, that sort of bubble of air and other gases that surround the Earth, providing us with life and oxygen and other things like that. So most of these small objects, most of these small pieces of space debris will burn up upon re-entry. I think anyone who's watched any programs about space or movies about space travel knows that traveling back through the atmosphere to reach the Earth, as astronauts have to when they're heading home, that is a very violent process, and it, of course, involves a lot of heat. The spacecraft have to sort of enter the Earth's atmosphere with a heat shield protecting them from burning up, from actually catching on fire. But the good news is that most of this space debris just does burn up. It burns away. It becomes consumed by flame and destroyed before it actually hits the Earth. This is during the re-entry process, entering the Earth's atmosphere in preparation to land on the surface of the Earth again, right? Of course, when you leave the Earth, you will exit the Earth's atmosphere, and then you will re-enter it at the end of your space journey.
You will come back again because all these things came from the Earth in the first place, and now they're going back. But most of these objects will burn up in the atmosphere. However, as the recent Kenyan case shows or demonstrates to us, that doesn't always happen. So sometimes objects are pretty big or they're pretty hard, and they will make it all the way to the ground. Now, most of the Earth is ocean, of course. Most of those debris items will probably fall into the oceans, but not necessarily. It is possible that they'll hit land like they did in Kenya there. And luckily, Joseph was not hurt there, nor was his cow. But hey, it might hurt somebody else in the future as more and more countries send stuff into low Earth orbit. And yes, indeed, that doesn't always happen. Sometimes it could be much worse. And meanwhile, at the same time, objects in higher orbits could remain there for hundreds or even thousands of years and pose a threat to functioning satellites and astronauts aboard the International Space Station. So you've got space junk in different positions around the Earth. Some of them are in low Earth orbit, some are much higher. And yes, indeed, they will stay up there longer because they're not so low. And if you're trying to have a space station or satellites in orbit around the Earth, they might run into that space junk, and that could cause big problems. They could pose a threat to those satellites. So to pose a threat just means to be a threat to something. You could also simply say threaten something. And we use that word pose with a lot of different situations. You could say something poses a challenge to you. It poses a danger. It threatens you in some way. So yes, indeed, this could happen to other objects up in space. Hey, they might get hit by space junk. That would be really tragic.
Yes, it would. But of course, this is all possibility. Yes, when we pose a threat, we're saying it's possible that it could happen. But there are things we can do about it. We can trust in luck, but maybe there are some things that we can do about it because, of course, space junk will become a growing problem in the future as more and more satellites get launched every year. So let's look at the final part of our article before we come back to wrap things up.
In short, space junk threatens people and property on Earth and in space. So, as our reliance on space technology grows, the question of how to effectively manage this debris is becoming increasingly urgent.
第三部分我们看到名词 reliance 指的是依赖或是依靠。举例来说 When conducting research, my reliance on the internet is very strong. 在进行研究时，我对网络的依赖非常强烈。又或者说 The country's reliance on development aid has increased over the last few years. 在过去几年里，该国对发展援助的依赖有所增加。最后看到形容词 urgent， 它表示紧急的或是急迫的。可以说 The army is in urgent need of more weapons. 该军队急需更多武器。最后一个例子I have an urgent question that needs to be answered right now. 我有个紧急的问题，需要立刻得到解答。
Okay, so in short, to summarize, to wrap things up, space junk threatens people and property on Earth and in space. It maybe isn't so dangerous now, but it might be more dangerous in the future, so we need to do something about it. So as our reliance on space technology grows, The question of how to effectively manage this debris is becoming increasingly urgent. So yes, indeed, we are reliant on space technology, which means we depend on it. We need it for our satellites and communication and things like that. Reliance is just the noun form. To be reliant on something means that you depend on it, you need it. So as our reliance increases, hey, we have more risks, and so we need to handle this debris, and handling it is more urgent, which means it's very important. It needs to be taken care of as soon as possible. Okay, we're at the end of our explanation for today. Here comes Hanny.
各位同学大家好，我是 Hanny。 我们来看今天的文法重点。课文一开始写到，在2024年最后一个星期一， Joseph Matua 正在照料他的牛只时，一声巨响划破了肯亚偏远村落的宁静。文中他用到 tend to 来表达照料，那我们就来整理一下这个动词 tend 它的相关用法。 tend 它有照顾照管的意思，那么之后是接名词， tend 也可以当不及物用，常常就会用 tend to somebody 或者是 tend to something 来表达照顾照料某人某事物这样。举例来说， Mary loves to spend time tending to her garden. Mary 喜欢花时间照顾她的花园。那另外tend to 后面接原形动词，则表示往往会怎么样，经常会怎么样，像是 fried food tends to be high in calories， 炸物往往热量高。那还有一个用法是 tend toward 或者 towards 再加名词，这是表达倾向于怎么样，通常具有某种特质的意思。举例来说， Carol tends toward perfectionism。 Carol 她有完美主义的倾向。好，那么我们看到课文第二部分第一句提到，尽管无人受伤，但这起事件凸显了太空垃圾带来的日益严重的问题。文中它用到单字 incident 来表达事件，那它常常用来指不愉快的事件或事故。我们来学习它的字首字根，看到 CID 或是 CAD、CAS 这一类字根，它有降落、落下的意思。那从降落的语义又延伸出发生、降临的语义，就像中文会有祸从天降的概念，那带有这一类字根的英文字常有负面的语义。好，我们看到在 incident 这个字当中，它的字首 in 表示进入， CID 表示发生， ENT 是名词字尾。那我们可以用进入到某个发生的事件情况里受其影响，用这个方式去联想到 incident， 它表示事件、事故。好，那顺便补充几个有这一类字根的单字。第一个是 coincident， 那这个字是在 incident 前面加上 co， 那这个字首 co 就表示一起。当同样的事件一起发生在两个人身上，应该可以联想到 coincident， 它可以形容是巧合的、碰巧的。好，那么第二个补充的是 casual， 它的字根 cas 表示发生， al 是形容词字尾，那合在一起 casual 它可以用来形容是偶然的、碰巧的、不经意的。第三个补充的是 decadence， 它的字首 de 表示离开，那它就带有 apart 或者是 down 的意思。那字根 cad 表示降落， ence 是名词字尾。我们可以试着用偏离正轨一直坠落的画面去联想到 decadence， 它有堕落或颓废的意思了。好，那以上是今天重点整理，我们回顾今天的单字吧。
Circular. Eli used a circular wooden tray to serve tea and cakes to his guests. Debris. Rescuers tirelessly dug through the massive piles of debris from the earthquake to search for survivors. Launch. The scientists will launch the rocket into space for an important mission. Incident. There was a minor safety incident at the airport this morning, but no one was hurt. Highlight. The reporter highlighted the main effects of the court's decision in her article. Atmosphere. Because they trap heat in the atmosphere, greenhouse gases play a key role in global warming. Urgent. The doctor received an urgent call about a patient in critical condition.
Discussion Starter starts now!
It's time now for our discussion starter, and the question is, what would you do first if a space object crashed near your home, and why?
that's a great question I've never actually thought about. The first thing I would do is make sure that it's not on fire or potentially dangerous, because as we read, the one that crashed into the Kenyan village was red hot. So I would want to just secure the area to make sure that no one gets injured or it wouldn't cause a problem. And then I guess the first real thing I would do is look up the phone number of a local university, since scientists and researchers would probably know a lot better about what to do with this thing and if it was safe and what it was. So I guess I would look for a local astronomy group or something like that to call in some experts in order to make sure that everything is nice and safe, because what am I going to do with a piece of space junk anyways?
Well, I know what I would do with this piece of space junk.
Sell it.
Yeah, that's the idea. I think I've been in Taipei too long. The first thing I thought about is, how can I make money from this? So I would contact various different universities and have them make bids on the object and sell it to the highest bidder.
Put it on
and,
eBay.
Yeah, make a ton of money. I would be set for life. Well, that brings us to the end of another edition of our program, and please make sure you join us again next time. From all of us here, I am Roger.
I am Mike.
See you next time.